You are live.
All
Good
right,
morning.
Carrie.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our March School Curriculum Assessment and Accountability Council meeting. So happy that each of you could join us today. I'm going to begin by reminding us of the goal and intent of our council, and that is to study, review, and make recommendations concerning Kentucky's system of setting academic standards, assessing learning, identifying academic competencies and deficiencies of individual students, holding schools accountable for learning, and assisting schools to improve their performance. We serve to advise the Kentucky Board of Education and Legislative Research Commission on issues related to the development and communication of the academic expectations and core content for assessment, the development and implementation of the statewide assessment and accountability program, recognition of high-performing schools, imposition of sanctions, and assistance for schools to improve their performance. So welcome to our meeting today. It looks like we have a really strong agenda. And I would like to take just a moment to introduce our new members. We have joining us as new SCAAC members that have been appointed to the council. We're pleased to welcome Dr. Mason. I believe Dr. Mason is Moorhead University, if that's correct. Rose Marie Young. And Robert Tuck is also representing our superintendent group. So welcome to our new members and glad to have you join us. And at this time, I will turn it over to Jessica to do the roll call of members.
Thank you, Carrie. Before I call roll, I provide some information to our members about conducting meetings in a virtual setting. This is a virtual meeting and it must comply with the requirements of the Open Meetings Act. The public may view the meeting via the link provided in the public agenda, which is posted to the KDE website. SCAAC members must ensure that their video is streaming and they can be seen throughout the duration of the meeting. Additionally, all discussions must be broadcast to the public. Each time you do speak during the meeting, please unmute your mic, state your name, and then take a short pause so that our software can have time to recognize you. For agenda items that require a formal vote, we will conduct a roll call to record the vote of each member. I'm not sure that we have any of those today, but this is just the reminder. Please silence and turn off all cell phones or electronic devices that may cause a disruption to your sound feed. And minutes will be taken and shared with the general public on the KDE website when available. Right? So I will now call roll. Again, members, when I call your name, please make sure that your camera and mic are on, state your full name, and indicate that you are present. We do need 9 members for a quorum. Deborah Atherton.
Deborah Atherton, present.
So sorry, Atherton. Carrie Ballinger.
Present.
Renee Boss. Martha Emmons. Chuck Fletcher.
It looks like Chuck is here. Jessica, we're going to work on his mic access. He may be having some issues there.
Okay, thank you. Jana Beth Francis. I also saw Jana Beth. Great. Frank Hall.
Hey, this is Jana Beth. My mic and camera were disabled, but I'm here and present.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm so sorry about that.
Frank Hall, present.
Thank you, Frank. Leslie Jeffries. I see Leslie Jeffries there. Nicola Mason.
Nicola Mason, present.
Thank you. Brenda McGowan. Allison Tammy, Josh Trotzper, Robert Tuck,
Robert Tuck, present.
thank you. Sarah Williams,
Present.
thank you. Alan Young, I see Alan. And Rosemary Young.
Rosemary Young. Present.
Thank you so much. All right. It does look like we have quorum. And Alan Young, I do see your hand up. We're working with your microphone right now. Okay. If we could, I will pass it back over to the chair and we will do a review of the agenda and approving of minutes.
Yes, thank you, Jessica. Just a quick reminder, all of your meeting materials that you need for today's meeting were shared with you through Jessica through email, and that title of that folder is SCAAC Google folder, and it is labeled as March. So if you need to reference any of the materials, they are in that folder. You have the agenda in front of you, and at this time, we need to approve our minutes from our November meeting. So I will need a first to approve those minutes.
I move to approve the minutes. Jana Beth Francis.
Thank you, Jana Beth. We have a first. Is there someone who will second that motion?
I second the motion. Nicola Mason.
Thank you, Dr. Mason. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye or giving us a thumbs up on your Teams meeting. Okay. All right, that motion will carry. Thank you. First up on our agenda, we have greetings from our commissioner, Dr. Robbie Fletcher. Welcome, Dr. Fletcher.
Thank you so much, Chair Ballinger. And hopefully, as we were talking a little bit before, this is your last snow day, I hope, of the year. I've knocked on wood a couple of times already, hoping that that's the case. And it was kind of odd to have those 70-degree weather chain and then all of a sudden snow yesterday and today, as a matter of fact. So for those of you who are on here, we really appreciate your service. Thank you for your time. Hopefully that you are able to be in school today. If not, we appreciate your taking time on a snow day to be with us today also, too. I'm going to spend a little bit of time and probably I'll cut into some of the other presentation on the assessment accountability from Dr. Stafford. But Dr. Stafford is going to fill in the holes for me when it gets to that part, she and her team. But I want to talk to you probably about the most important bill, at least for this group, what is one of the most important bills that's up into the Senate at this point. I'm going to share my screen and show you what I'm going to get ready to show you is actually the here we go. And let me make this full screen. When I talk about the Model Framework 4.0, this is essentially the version as of June 2025. And this is what went through all of our town halls. This is what went through from our town halls to our surveys to that over a year of work to get to this point where we went through four different prototypes and 4 different model frameworks to get to this point. Basically what happened at that point is in August of last year, August 2025, Dr. Perry and I started meeting individually with each member of the Senate Ed. And we took this model and talked to them about the process. How did we get here? What's going on? So we met with every single Senate Education Committee member. And then over those 4 or 5 months, and then we also met with various members of the House Ed Committee, and we also met with the House Speaker, Osborne, and to let them know this is where we are. So the proposal, after we talked to everyone, we actually put this into a bill format. So we included all the options, all the things that you see here. And of course, there were a couple other pages as part of this work, but we took all this and put it into a bill format. When I say we, I'm talking about the Kentucky Department of Education, and took this to talk to Senate leadership and House leadership. Of course, the first thing you got to do is you have to get a bill sponsor. At one point, we met with a group of after talking with Senate and House leadership, they wanted this to start in the House. So we met with probably 6 different House of Representative members, and we went through 2 meetings. The very first meeting, 2.5 hours. The second meeting was over 2 hours. And then House Bill 257 was filed. And so what I'm going to talk to you a little bit is some of the differences in this bill versus the original. And then also too, there's actually an amendment to 257 that caused one other change. So if you look on the right side, our accountability proposal has 2 parts: the state accountability indicators on the right, and then the local accountability indicators on the left. The state accountability portion is the part that fulfills all federal requirements. And it's also the part that's used for CSI calculation. Again, if you've been on SCAAC before, this slide is very familiar to you. You've seen this several times, several presentations, so nothing should be a surprise. Some of the things now that are in 257, I'm going to work on the state accountability piece, is that reading, math, science, and social studies are still part of the accountability model. Notice that is different than what you see from the proposal here. On-demand writing and editing mechanics has been removed from our current testing model and moved over to where it would be, we're asking for it to be more of a focus within your site-based program, your site-based policies, to have a focus on writing across the curriculum. So we didn't get all the way to the point of just reading and mathematics. Science and social studies was included, but on-demand writing and editing mechanics is in the 257, as it is now, is not part of the state accountability piece. Also, too, there is the best part about this: the individual student growth stays in. One of the biggest things we asked for was to move from change to growth, as in 257. The parts that you see about English language progress, transition readiness, and graduation rate, that's still there. That doesn't change from our current KSA, and that we didn't ask for a change in that. Another difference is the climate and safety survey. And while we were meeting with people in the House, this was something that was, this part was met with a lot of opposition, and they put in chronic absenteeism as part of of this piece. So chronic absenteeism replaces climate safety and survey. Now, please keep in mind that our Board of Education, the Kentucky Board of Education, still will set the percentages. So climate safety survey, I think, is currently like 4%. I would expect chronic absenteeism to be about the same. Some other things that we were asking for that really doesn't appear on this was we were asking for the removal of the color rating system. The bill would not have moved at all. I mean, we actually proposed that in our original language, but that was removed. One of the first things that was removed from the House. So again, one of the things that we really pushed for was to remove those color ratings. So we want more collaboration as opposed to competition among our districts. So on the right side, those are the major changes that you see. There are some wins. Again, the writing has been removed. The individual student growth is still included. Well, there's no changes so far in transition readiness, graduation rate, English language proficiency, and things of that matter. So there are some wins, but again, there are some changes too. I'm not saying I'm pleased with everything, but I still think that that's so important that we have the change to growth. I think that's a very important part of this, and still reducing the amount of testing is also accomplished by taking out on-demand writing and editing mechanics. You move over to the left side, when we start talking about local accountability, one of the first things that was discussed within the Senate when they didn't like the phrase local accountability. So there was just some semantics, a word change. Instead of local accountability, there would be locally determined indicators of quality. And the reason for that is when you go talk to legislators, they think of accountability as comparability. And that's not what we're looking for in the local accountability piece. We're not looking to how to compare. We're looking for a district to compare where they are and then what's their future state and where they've been in the past and how do they grow. So it's really a district comparing themselves with whatever indicators they determine and how they want to grow and see how they achieve those goals that they set for themselves. Some other changes was we did recommend a computer adaptive assessment in reading and mathematics. That would also have given districts the grade level equivalency, not just grade level proficiency, but also grade level equivalency. We were told due to cost that was removed. Well, if you remove the computer adaptive assessment, if you look over on the left, the interim assessments on reading and math were also removed. We were asking that the legislature actually pay for the interim assessments. Now it would be one uniform system. So we did have some pushback from various groups because right now many of you use maybe MAP, STAR, iReady, things of that nature. And we had some districts that felt like, we want to keep whatever program we have. We don't want to take the chance of losing the system that we have. We've trained our teachers on, we've done our MTSS on this. We know where we are. So we made that an opt-in piece as part of the, when you say interim assessments, they were opt-in our original proposal. But now that's also been removed in House Bill 257. I will say that if you look at, there's still locally determined indicators and and it's also includes vibrant learning. So a lot of wins still yet in that local accountability piece. Overall, I feel like this is a good piece of legislation. I think that it's still not quite to where we want to be on our moonshot, but it is a step in the right direction, a major step, as a matter of fact. One other change. So now let's get away from this for just a second, and I want to stop sharing because you'll notice that before there was no financial incentive whatsoever for districts to have local accountability. Even in our model framework 4.0, not any at all. In the conversations with legislators in House Bill 257, they actually added a financial incentive for districts. It would be a $10,000 originally in 257. It would be a $10,000 per district allotment, if you will, for accountability, plus $3 per student. So, if you had 10,000 students, you'd have another $30,000 added onto your $10,000 base. So you'd have $40,000 to help you with your local accountability model. That was actually capped on a floor amendment, and there was an amendment a committee sub, not an amendment. A committee sub was added that changed it to just a flat 15,000. So even though that was a little bit of a hit, but our original proposal had no financial incentive. Now, also too, the financial incentive that we proposed when we were talking back and forth was a yearly financial incentive. The current one is $15,000 one time to get people started with local accountability. So at this point, you have the $15,000 incentive, the local accountability, local determined indicators, and you also have the changes on the state side, which are some positive changes. But this is where House Bill 257 is currently. It passed out of the House at 92-1. It's now in the Committee on Committees in the Senate. Now, we're at a very important part because tomorrow, I was called last Friday and asked to meet, and I think Dr. Stafford, myself, Representative Payne, Senator Gibbons, Senator West, we'll all be meeting tomorrow at 11:30. And honestly, I think that Senator Gibbons has some other, what he's calling tweaks, that he would like to see in the model. I don't know what those are. I can speculate on some things, but there's some tweaks. I'm hoping that his tweaks would include the opt-in interim assessments and the computer adaptive model. I hope that's what his tweaks are. But again, we won't know for sure until tomorrow. So again, that means very important. One of the things I've tried to emphasize to our legislators, this was a long process. This was a 2-year process that included thousands of people, several committees. And so any changes that are made, I think, really takes away from that process that we've gone through and really kind of undermines that. So what I've tried to push for them is this is not a Dr. Fletcher or at the time Rhonda Sims or a Jennifer Stafford system that was just pulled out of a cabinet somewhere. This was something that thousands of our people, citizens across our Commonwealth went together and came up with the model. Now, we didn't all agree on every part, but this was the model that we felt was moving forward with what we'd like to see. We didn't quite get to our moonshot, but I will say I will think this is more than just a launch towards that. And the reason for that is the change over to growth, and also the part about having local accountability as in statute, I think is very important. There's some other things that may be changed, but tomorrow's a very important meeting. And I hate that this is the speed of this. It's not like I can come back and report back out, get everybody's input back in, because I would expect that after tomorrow's meeting, depending on how it goes, it could be in the Senate Education Committee on Thursday, possibly. I'm always leery of how things work with when you're this late in the game, what else they'll try to attach. It may not be anything about change the accountability model. It may be another bill that they want to add to this and put two bills together and move it forward. So I think tomorrow has potential to be a very interesting meeting. Hopefully we'll get to where we feel comfortable with moving forward. But again, at this point, it's between the House and the Senate on the changes it'll make, and I'll do my best to lobby to add some of those things back in that we've had. But the one thing I cannot get any right now, would not get any support on, is removing those color ratings. That's going to stay. That's not going to have a change. Not at least not in this session. As local accountability grows, I think we have potential to maybe come back and talk about that in the future. So I know that takes up a lot. I know Jennifer, Dr. Stafford, and her team's also going to talk about the SAT and other things like that they're part of their presentation. But again, I'll take any questions on 257 or any other bill as we move forward. Jana Beth?
Thank you. And I'm glad to see that the advocating for this bill has gone well. A couple of things. So first of all, you and I were both around when we did growth before. So I'm curious what the technical panel is suggesting for growth, and just want to make sure that, when we did growth before in the state, it was quickly pulled off. So it's not been the first time we've talked about individual student growth. And on that, I know there's still opportunities to tweak, but we're missing a real opportunity to measure growth from 4th grade through 10th grade by not assessing 9th graders. And I think it's a real shame that you assess 3 through 8 in reading and math, and we're all about a district and growth, and then we just drop the 9th graders. There's no assessment for 9th graders. And I know you're looking at reimagining high school, but I think that 9th grade year has been left out, and I think it's a critical transition point. So I would just want to emphasize that if we are going to stick with a growth measure, why would we drop it at the end of 8th grade when we have an opportunity to see if students transition well to high school?
And that was something as we went through, there wasn't a lot of discussion about adding 9th grade back in the Cool Council and others. I think that, and again, I'm not going to speak for other members, but that was a concept that I agree with you, Jana Beth, first and foremost. I want to say I do agree. It makes sense to include 9th grade and include that growth from 8th to 9th, 9th to 10th. Makes perfect sense. It wasn't something that made it out of the Cool Council. And as a matter of fact, there wasn't a lot of discussion on that. Now, we'll also say too, as far as the bill itself, as we move forward with growth, we'll go through committees. I think we will go through LSAC and other committees too. We'll bring back, talk with this group about what that looks like. One of the things that, if the commissioner could have a vote right now about what I would like to see different about the growth model is, in the previous growth model in 2018, 17, 18, whenever that was, if a student was proficient in 3rd grade and then also proficient in 4th grade, I don't think they were assigned any type of quote unquote growth points, even though you mastered 3rd grade content and you also mastered 4th grade content. I would argue that's a large amount of growth. So again, it'll go through our committees. We don't have here is the plan for growth. We'll go through our committees and see what they recommend. And of course, we'll come back with this group too and talk about what they have there also. All right, let's see. Is that Superintendent Tuck?
Yeah, if you don't mind, can you explain as far as how high school will work? Because I'm a little fuzzy on whether or not 10th grade will be considered growth or how that will work a little bit.
I don't think that since we don't have 9th to 10th grade, growth will be 3 through 8. And so since there's no 9th and 10th grade scores, even in previously, if I remember correctly, we didn't have growth in the high school. So growth would not be a part of the model at the high school level. If they've somehow added 9th grade, then there would be potential for the growth. And again, Jennifer, would you agree with that? Dr. Stafford, anything you'd like to add to that?
Yes. Good morning, everyone. And thanks for the question, Superintendent Tuck. High schools will really remain the same as far as the indicators that the schools will be reported on. The big change in high school will be on the reduction of the change element. So they're taking out the change on each of those different indicators because remember, it was status and change. And which we reported on for the past few years. And so with this bill, it removes that change element from all of the indicators. And then we go back to where we were prior to this new system with only reporting out status, which is current year performance. So in particular, your high schools then will have their indicators would be, if it goes forward as it is in 257 with the committee sub, would be state assessment results in reading and math, state assessment results in science and social studies, your EL progress, your post-secondary readiness, and graduation rate. Those would be the 5 indicators at high school.
Okay. Thank you, Superintendent Tuck. Are there others? Let's see, who do we have?
I think Alan has a question.
Okay, Alan? You're on mute, sir.
Thank
There
you.
we go.
And now I've got both on. You've been sort of buffering on mine. It may only be me that is having the problem, but hopefully I'm not buffering back. I don't know if I am, but
You're good.
Good. So I'm trying to get this right. On the right side of what I thought was the most current version, I think you said there had something been added about chronic absenteeism. Isn't there also an amendment on still including climate survey? Is that still a possibility that would still be part of it? And it looked like it was still on the right side of that as well. It said climate and something. Could you speak about that?
I sure can. What you're seeing was Model Framework 4.0. When we took it across and was talking with House bill, the House members, they took out the climate and safety survey and added in chronic absenteeism. Now, I will say there are members of the Senate that have reached out to us and they're concerned about that. They would prefer, and I say they, 1 or 2, I'm not speaking for the entire Senate. I've had some Senate members to reach out and say, we would prefer to see this in. So that could be part of the meeting tomorrow. I don't know for sure. The floor amendments were not taken up in the House. So currently the bill does not include the climate and safety survey. So since those amendments were not taken up and the 92-1 vote did not include those amendments, what's in the Senate Committee on Committees now is chronic absenteeism instead of the climate safety survey. Now, tomorrow's meeting may be different, and we'll see. That's an opportunity for us to talk about that. And the argument that I presented, that many of our superintendents have talked about is, districts are already dependent upon, their attendance for funding. So if they're going to be penalized for attendance already in one area, why should they be penalized also in the accountability piece? The counter argument from our friends in the House was that 36 states include chronic absenteeism as part of their accountability model, and we should too, because if we focus on it, then it'll happen. So that's the counter argument that's being given. I'm not saying I agree or disagree. It's just the counter argument that's being given to us.
So if I could follow up, the amendments that you said that were listed on the LRC site just didn't make it over to this process. But it isn't the case that both things couldn't exist. In other words, it had to be one versus the other if tomorrow or something else. And were the feds having to have something about climate? Because our original proposal had that on the right side. Was that part of the federal requirements that our state requirements were going to try to meet about the climate survey or anything like that?
Dr. Stafford, I think that fills one of the buckets. Am I correct? Would you care to add to that? It does.
You're exactly right, Dr. Fletcher. So with ESSA, you have to have it's called a school climate or culture indicator. So the way that Kentucky has in the past met that requirement is through that survey. So that survey then would be replaced with chronic absenteeism for fulfilling that requirement for ESSA. And I will note that would be a high school indicator as well, so that chronic absenteeism would be at each level, elementary, middle, and high school.
But that would actually fulfill, chronic absenteeism fills the federal requirement for the climate of a building.
It's called a school climate student success indicator, and states have the flexibility of meeting that in various ways. So yes, chronic absenteeism is used, I want to say, by 26 other states to meet that requirement. Right now, Kentucky is using the survey and not chronic absenteeism, but yes, the U.S. Department of Education accepts chronic absenteeism as a measure to meet that specific indicator.
And then on the local accountability side, also, it looks like social studies is on the local accountability side. That's not in the state, or
No. That was what I was projecting, was the original proposal from the Cool Council, from SCAAC,
Yeah.
and from others. What's been changed in the House Bill 257 is social studies and science both are in the calculation. On-demand writing and editing mechanics, it's going to be more along the policy lines. If you want to include it in local accountability, you can. You don't have to. And when I say you, a district can decide we want to include writing in our local accountability model. They don't have to. So what we're asking is to be more of a focus within policy about writing across the curriculum. So social studies and science in the current 257 is a part of the reading, math, social studies and science, the calculation for CSI status, if you will, the federal piece.
all right, thank you.
You're welcome. Other questions? All right. So, well, first of all, I want to thank Dr. Stafford for being the. I'll be the wingman on that, and she'll be the. I'll be the sidekick. She always does a great job. I really appreciate that so much, Dr. Stafford. And so, if there's no other questions, I know I focused mainly on 257, but I'll be happy to answer any others that you may have. If not, Dr. Ballinger, I'll turn it back over to you.
Hey, thank you, Commissioner. And I will take just a moment to say on behalf of superintendents how much we appreciate you and the work that you're doing and advocating for us in Frankfort and building those relationships. And that does not go unnoticed. So thank you for your work in that area and always supporting the school districts. And that is much appreciated. So thank you.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Okay, moving on our agenda, we have a high school transformation work group update, and that is being provided today for us by Galiptis Ann Jones, and she's the Director of Education Policy in the Office of the Commissioner. We will turn it over to you. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation. Glad to be here. And I just want to make sure that I am sharing the slides correctly. Hopefully you all see High School Transformation in Kentucky Work Group. Is that correct? Thank you. And so my name is Galiptis Ann Jones. I do serve as the Director of Education Policy. And in part of that role, I also serve as the Executive Director of our State Board of Education. And last year, so 2025, the Kentucky Board of Education approved their annual goals for the year. And one of those goals that they approved was a exploration of opportunities for high school transformation across the Commonwealth, particularly aligned with workforce development. And so today I'm here to share a brief update about some work specifically related to the High School Transformation Work Group. That's an exploratory committee exploratory group, related to the KBE. It is chaired by State Board member Dr. Justin Pate. Commissioner Fletcher also serves as part of that work group, along with the KBE Vice Chair Lou Young. The Kentucky Board of Education was actually invited by the National Association of State Boards of Education, also known as NASB, to participate in this work group. Kentucky was one of 6 states invited, really for their work in the United We Learn space. As you all may be very familiar, The board and a lot of other work groups and stakeholders here in Kentucky have engaged in exploration of reimagining assessment and accountability. And part of that continued focus for the state board members was how do you continue to use that transformation and that reimagination and then dive deeper, particularly into the high school space. So once, as part of this invitation from NASB, Dr. Pate helped convene a gathering of work group members specifically to help build the capacity of the state board to explore and identify opportunities to really deepen that student experience. And then, as you'll see here on the slide, also foster content mastery and durable skills. Those should all sound very familiar, I think, as goals related to the United We Learn vision of education here in Kentucky. Dr. Pate and the work group has met 2 times already. The work group formed last year and has met twice. They do have 2 more meetings, and I'll share those dates with you momentarily. But as part of the most recent meeting, which actually occurred just a couple of weeks ago at the end of February, the group met at Elkhorn Crossing School in Scott County and focused their attention particularly on personalized student learning. And they also, Dr. Pate outlined goals of the work group, specifically to identify potential barriers in the way of high school transformation, seek out best practices related to high school transformation currently happening in Kentucky, and then craft or discuss and potentially craft policy proposals for lawmakers to consider. You'll see here a list of the areas and representation of the members that are part of this group. The work group does have 13 members. And you'll see here that in addition to some state board members, there are superintendent representation. There's representation from the Kentucky Chamber of Commerce, from the Council of Post-Secondary Education. The Education Professional Standards Board is also represented in this work group, along with representatives from the executive and legislative branches. As I mentioned, the group has already met twice and they'll continue to meet. Dr. Fletcher in particular is helping lead the work group through an exploration of the Kentucky Innovation Guide seen here, and the link is available on the slide as well. If you are not familiar with this Innovation Guide, I'll briefly highlight. It is a resource that the Kentucky Department of Education published last year, and really it's an opportunity for an opportunity to showcase work currently happening in Kentucky. There are profiles on districts in Kentucky that are engaging in really 6 focus action areas related to personalized learning. So this is an opportunity, a resource developed out of our Office of Continuous Improvement and Support. And it really details that innovative work happening in Kentucky schools related to creating that vibrant learning experience for our Kentucky students. And so Dr. Fletcher is helping lead the work group in a reflection of each of those action areas and in really inviting input, again, related to those 3 action areas that Dr. Pate has outlined. What are areas that are continuing to be barriers related to transformation in Kentucky, and then areas, again, to further spotlight and hopefully potentially scale. Shared here some just reflections of the recent work group meetings of how they are focusing their conversation on advancing personalized learning. So a continuation of the work here in the Innovation Guide, again, deepening that focus more in the high school student experience. The work group does continue to emphasize that continued and stronger alignment between high school experiences and post-secondary next steps. And then in the 3rd bullet here on the slide, you'll see the conversation has surfaced shared interest in identifying those systemic barriers and promising practices. I also want to note that this work group, again, designed to be exploratory in nature, will have 2 more meetings. They are also aligned with state board meeting dates in case those happen to be on your calendar. The both of those meetings, April and June, will be here at the Kentucky Department of Education. Those meetings will be recorded, as always, and posted onto our Kentucky Department of Education media portal if those are of interest. And our Division of Communications always puts out a spotlight feature story that shares updates about the work of this group. Happy to answer questions. I see Dr. Fletcher here may have some additional comments, but I wanted to provide this quick update for you so that one, this group was aware of the conversations that may be occurring, and this to provide some background about the group in particular. So I'll turn it over to Dr. Fletcher.
Yeah, just to add on the Kentucky Innovation Guide, the 6 areas, the very first one, many of our districts already work on, and that's the Portraits of a Learner. We feel like a big part of innovation in our Commonwealth is that creating a portrait of a learner and really working on students being communicators, collaborators, creative thinkers, global learners. Another big piece of this is the local accountability, local assessment, local accountability. And I will applaud Dr. Ballinger as one of many that has a local accountability model within our state that has really transformed and made a big difference in what's going on in their district. It's helped to galvanize the community towards common goals. And I'll stop there. Dr. Ballinger, anything you want to add there on that, on the local accountability piece?
Certainly, and Commissioner and I have had many conversations about this, and I have said repeatedly, whether this becomes part of the state accountability system or it does not in Rockcastle County, we will continue this work. It has truly been revolutionary for us in bringing our community together, and that includes parents, students, classified employees, certified employees, our business leaders, our local elected officials, and our state elected officials coming together to talk about and set goals for our district and then to follow up on those goals. And we report out multiple times a year on our success, and it's truly changed our communication with our stakeholders. It's just been a very, very strong piece of work in our district. So I applaud the commissioner for putting this work forward at the state level.
And thank you so much, Dr. Ballinger. And I think we have somewhere around 8 to 10 districts that have an operationalized local accountability model of some sort. And there's more that are working on this. I think there's others. I think Superintendent Tuck, I think you may be working on local accountability also too in your county there. And so anything you'd like to add on that, Superintendent Tuck?
No, I'll just echo what Dr. Ballinger said. It's really, as we've began to have conversations and developing as far as our platform, it really helps us really connect with our community, with our parents, with our local legislators and stuff. And it just lifts everybody up based upon the work and partnerships, particularly in rural districts and stuff too, where the school district is basically your hub for your local communities and stuff too. So so thankful for the work and everything that the state's done to support this process. And just like Dr. Ballinger, we would be doing this regardless of what the state did because it's what's best for students.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. And those are the testimonies that we're hearing from superintendents and from community members and from parents of how this local accountability really can be a driver for innovation, but also for collaboration and communication across the district. Other parts we also are focusing in on is personalized learning. What about graduation flexibilities? We have a very flexible graduation requirement compared to other states. And how many districts well, first of all, have the opportunity to utilize those, or maybe are a little afraid to step out on those. You know, for example, a student doesn't have to have English 1, English 2, English 3, and English 4. As long as it matches up with their program and meets the standards for English 3 and for junior and senior English, they could do something that's more aligned with their pathway when it comes to English 3 and English 4. So, you know, having districts to really work on that, there's a lot of flexibilities. And what we're trying to do is how do we remove barriers for districts to say we want to be able to fully utilize those flexibilities. We talked about how do we credential learning? How do we get, performance-based credits? Those are all, we've been able to have performance-based credits for I want to say a couple of decades at least, but there's not a lot of use of that. So also we've talked about teacher certification, what that looks like. How can we make some changes there that maybe would help people? But again, all these we want to make sure that, districts have a lot at their disposal that they can even waive statute if there's something innovative that they want to put in their districts, and we want to be there to help. And then also too, how do we make sure that, for example, the models are being used in these two counties? How can those be, we don't want a carbon copy. We don't want a stamp, because then it's not a local accountability model. We want them to be able to say, okay, this is our process. This is the changes we've made, and we want to spread that throughout the Commonwealth. So again, that's what we based our work on. You can see how it touches in really nicely with our House bill of how we want to move forward with accountability. So I'll stop there and turn it back over to Glyptis Ann.
I see, Alan, you have your hand raised.
Yes, thank you. Well, first of all, thank you for the wonderful work that's been done in this area. I applaud it, and just like with all of the work that has gone forward on the moonshot and everything like that, you know, I keep pushing forward, and I know in reality we only get what we get, but I want to keep pushing on a couple of elements, because in Jefferson County in particular, I think you know that we end up sharing the brunt of how federal and state accountability have had certain formulas and measures that fixate on particular schools of ours. And the wonderful part about the local accountability and also the climate thing that I brought up before, school climate versus chronic absenteeism, are better measures for us to push on to get more student engagement and for them to have a more meaningful experience so they want to be in school. Unfortunately, because the state accountability indicators, and I fear that even so much with chronic absenteeism coming back up and local accountability not having a way to have sway for those schools that are feeling the brunt of the state accountability problems, those kids don't, and those teachers don't, and those schools don't, those administrators don't get to have as much excitement in the support of how the local accountability could help raise the state accountability, because they go backwards to it. They say, get your scores up, then we can work on the local. But I feel like it's the opposite. If we could work on the local in those places, we actually might make some changes in the state. And it isn't only in the high school for us. So that's the other thing I would throw out there, that our kids in elementary schools that are already identified as, you know, not being up to snuff with regard to state accountability, they end up getting steady diets, 2 and 3 and 4 helpings of the same thing over and over. And that even happens, Commissioner Fletcher, from the support we get from the department. And it's been our experience here that it has not been a leading thing to have deeper learning or meaningful learning or vibrant learning to be the solution to how to get those kids more engaged, to get all of their parts. It's as if you got to work on test scores one way and you work on the other way. And I don't believe that's true. I just throw that in the room because as this committee is about curriculum assessment and accountability and the nexus and how policy and practice emerges from that, I'm saying there are a couple of areas to work on, and whether it's whatever it is that can help uphold the parts that we're bringing here with the local assessment and accountability, with the stuff with the transformation of high school, all of those things are wonderful things, but somehow we've got to be able to leverage that more, especially in the places where the schools that face the most challenges have. They're the ones that are most likely to not get these things, and they're the ones that need it most. And I just put that in the room. So whatever we can do, that's why I asked the question even about the school climate being added back in, because if other things besides absenteeism were looked at, they'd have other things to work on to try to make a more engaging school experience for kids, which I think will be better. And if not, if it's just state accountability, I fear those schools that are identified will literally go up in their absenteeism because they'll just be getting more focus on test scores. And I'm sorry for all of that. I don't mean to be a diatribe, but I'm trying to elevate an area where if we can use these other great parts that we're doing, I'm putting kudos out for that, but I want it to reach those kids where their state test scores haven't looked good. I think we got to give them this stuff because if they do get it, they're more likely to move on their test scores too, because they'll be wanting to come to school and have personalized learning and other kinds of things as well, where they can show what they can do. We can work on the other things too, but that's not what's been happening here in terms of the approaches by which we meet the kids in those schools. Even from the State Department, they just focus on the scores more than the vibrant learning experiences.
Well, the only thing I'll push back on that is let's go to the positive. I think that's why it's so important for local accountability to grow, is so that people can see the positive impact throughout the Commonwealth. We have to have districts that buy in that, and then also too, let's see how that makes an impact. The other thing is that I will say that, and again, this was something that came through the committee, I think growth helps the schools that are maybe are in that CSI category, because where did you get the child and where did you take that child should be something that makes an impact for your students more than a change element or something of that nature. The only other thing too is, and then on the other side, I understand I was in 2 PLA schools. And that's why I was hired, was to turn around 2 schools. The issues that when I was hired in was teachers did not understand what grade level content was. So there's a lot of times it's about grade level content and making sure our teachers understand, even if you provide vibrant learning opportunities, that needs to be on grade level. For example, I'll give you a quick example, then I've got to get off here, but I would prefer that we look at that at the vibrant learning experiences and how that makes learning meaningful, aligned with the curriculum, and then use that as the tool. I agree. No argument there. But sometimes we're finding in district, I can tell you from personal experience, I went in and observed a 7th grade math class. And I came back and when I talked with the teacher, I said, I closed my eyes and I walk in, I said, I would have told you that this was a wonderful 3rd grade math class. And you open your eyes, I'm sitting in a 7th grade classroom. The teacher wasn't teaching to the standard. And it wasn't because the students couldn't get to that standard. It's just the teacher wasn't teaching content on that standard. So it's hard to balance that. But I do agree that if we get vibrant learning, if we get it right, then that will be the tool to bring those schools up and bring that bar up. And math and reading are important, but that should be the tool to get us where we need to be. So that being said, I do have a meeting at 10, and I'll turn it over to the capable hands of back to Dr. Ballinger and also Glyptis Ann, Dr. Jones. Of course, if I'm here, it seems like the meeting goes a little longer, so I apologize for that. But again, if you have any questions, please send those to me. I'll do my best to try to answer them, and thank you all so much for your input. I really appreciate it.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Commissioner.
Commissioner.
Dr. Ballinger, I'll just briefly close. I too also need to head to a different meeting. I do want to say thanks for the opportunity to just provide this brief update. You'll note that the focus of the work group's next meeting is a focus on local assessment and accountability. And the work group does intend to continue to surface those barriers districts may be facing in terms of realizing or maximizing these opportunities that Dr. Fletcher identified are possible through existing policy, and then also to continue to identify and spotlight districts that are succeeding in these spaces and really opportunities to learn from and share through a wider network and potentially scale, as I mentioned. I'm also available to answer any questions and look forward to continuing to support this work group and answering any questions that you all may have. And I'll turn back to you, Dr. Ballinger. Thank you for the opportunity to be here.
Thank you for being with us today, and thank you for the discussion. Moving on in our agenda, we have an assessment and accountability update, and that is going to be provided to us by Dr. Jennifer Stafford, who is the Associate Commissioner in the Office of Assessment Accountability. And I think she has some other people on her team joining her as well. So Dr. Stafford, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, and good morning again. Shara, is with me. Shara Savage is going to present along with me today. And Shara, if you want to go ahead and take control and advance the slides, I'll just let you take care of that. So we're going to start out again with House Bill 257 because that's the one that impacts the SCAAC and our office the most. I'm not going to go over the particulars that Dr. Fletcher did because you've already heard that. So without being repetitive, I just wanted to highlight just a few of the areas, particularly around individual student growth, because we had an earlier question about that. And in the past, Kentucky has had individual student growth. There are different models out there that we've used, and one particularly went over well, and another one didn't go so well and had a lot of feedback. So we are learning from the past and our experiences with individual student growth. So just to kind of level set, individual student growth is the change. We're going to look at the change of the student's performance between their assessments. So it's an elementary and middle school indicator, as we've discussed this morning, because we don't have reading and math at the high school level every single year, just once. So the individual student growth indicator is an elementary and middle school indicator, and those will be looked at in the content areas of reading and math. So think about your state assessments, your third grader, and where he or she performed on the third grade reading test, and where the student then, that same student, scored and performed on the fourth grade reading, and so forth, the fifth grade reading and on, and then the same for math. So looking and using those standardized assessments for that looking for that growth. So it's important that we include that, the individual student growth, and it has been the most accepted and advocated for across the time frame that we've been doing the Kentucky United We Learn Council, gathering feedback, doing our town halls. It has been the number one most accepted and advocated for. So looking at that, again, that progress, because not all students come into or are at proficiency, but we want to celebrate the growth that the student has in those areas. And also we want to celebrate the effective teaching that is happening in the classroom for those schools. So you want to know that the student and celebrate the student that is moving in the right direction and gaining that knowledge and those skills that are expected in order to then eventually meet that performance of proficiency. So there's different types of models that out there. There's just a simple growth model. There's student growth percentiles. There's value added models. There's growth targets, and all of those have their pros and cons. And at this point, the Kentucky Department of Education does not have one particular model that we are set on. We're quite open and are going to bring in stakeholders. We're going to bring in educators. We're going to bring in people that have an educational interest in the individual student growth to help provide input on that. And we have a lot of advisory councils. The School Curriculum Assessment Accountability Council is very important in providing feedback. Also, the local superintendent advisory council, they are an advocacy group or a governor appointed committee as well that will provide feedback. And the commissioner has lots of other advisory councils that will be included in this discussion around what they value, what they want to see out of a growth model, and then again, take all that information into consideration as a model is then moved forward. So with that, with the changes that are, again, possible through this legislation, it has to be passed first, right? And we've got just a couple of weeks here left in this session. So there's a time frame in which we need to get this done in order to make the changes possible. That will include working with the Kentucky Board of Education. So once any legislation is passed, then we will quickly work with bringing together stakeholders around those types of discussions. Your SCAAC meeting we're looking at your SCAAC meeting in June to provide a good bit of feedback in preparation for we have a technical advisory council. It's a group of national experts in psychometrics, in testing, and in developing statewide programs that we are going to meet with in late June. So we are developing plans now currently to gather this feedback and move rather quickly. In preparation for a discussion with the Kentucky Board of Education and in their June meeting. So we're meeting with this group again in May in preparation for the June meeting with the Kentucky Board of Education. So they will then take the feedback that we've gathered, provide some guidance and direction at that point. Now, one of the pieces that the board will decide is the weights of each of these indicators. So bringing in individual student growth, that's going to change, or we could expect the board would want to change the weighting percentages of the other indicators. So there will be a review and discussion with the Kentucky Board of Education, with our other groups on what the accountability weight should be that contributes to that overall accountability rating. So those weights, again, are not determined either. And so, again, you will have a lot of input on what those weights should be. And so moving forward from that June board meeting to a first read of a regulation could possibly be in August of this year. So moving into the school year for 26-27. So what that means then is that for this school year that we're in, the 25-26 school year, there would be no impact on assessments or accountability. So we are at this point, the bill is not an emergency. So we would continue to assess on-demand writing and editing mechanics in the spring of 26. Because again, that bill is not being filed as an emergency bill that would have to go into effect immediately. So the assessment this spring would continue on as they have planned. Also, accountability reporting in the fall of 26 would continue on as we have the current model. So it would be the same as we had reported in the fall of 2025. So it would be the same system at that point. So now where we will see changes, though, if, again, the legislation is passed, would be in the spring of 2027. And at that point, we would reduce the on-demand writing and editing mechanics in our spring 2027 assessments and then make changes to the accountability system for fall reporting of 2027. So lots of preparations, lots of changes, and lots of input that will be gathered along the way that will impact our schools. So let me pause there and see if that answers some questions, and if you have others before I turn it over to Shara. Alan, I see your hand.
Yes, well, thank you once again. This is always so informative, and I always really feel so good about the expertise and advocacy that comes on from the department. Um, you know, I don't know that every state department has that. I was in Iowa before, and they were a pretty good department at the time when I was there too. But I've always been impressed. But I want to say that there is an opportunity, and I just want to put this out here. And our superintendents who are leading the way in this, with Superintendent Ballinger and Tuck and others, may be able to talk about the hidden possibility of writing and editing mechanics going to the local accountability side if people so choose to take that up with a more writing across the curriculum approach. I would just like to highlight, just because I think we're not only a committee that does this, but it also can be pioneers and innovators. If you dovetail that with the portrait of a learner about communication across the curriculum, it could be reading, writing, speaking, listening across the curriculum in local accountability ways that also make it so that it's not just standards versus competencies, but rather that these are different grain sizes, right? The competency is the bigger grain size that are made up by all these different parts of our standards in these areas, but realized in a more local, authentic system. So I don't want to spend more time in that. I just want to throw it into the room that it's not necessarily a loss, but could be a gain as long as people will really value and leverage the local side for these skills that are probably not as easily tested in the traditional ways anyway, but would be very much impactful and powerful for our kids and our communities when they can see how well our kids can communicate. So I just throw that out there to realize that on the one hand, we may not have gotten certain things that we want, but we might be able to leverage it as long as we don't lose it and we intentionally then try to leverage it. But thank you for everything that you've done. And I know the superintendents here have been leading systems that probably are already far ahead on those things. But I just say it's an opportunity with all the different districts that have portraits of a learner, ours included. So.
Thank you, Alan. And just as a focus on the bill focuses on the Site-Based Decision-Making Council for writing and developing policies of own writing across the curriculum. So those text-based writings, the editing and mechanics, those things will continue in local accountability or local instruction. But importantly is that in our assessments of the other contents in reading, in social studies, in math, in science, they continue to have assessments that include writing through extended responses and constructed responses. So writing's not going away, but shifting.
Thank you, Dr. Stafford, for your presentation. Do we have any more questions for Dr. Stafford before we move on in our agenda?
And I'll turn it over. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, last on our agenda, we have a strategic dashboard update, and that is being provided to us by Karen Dodd, Chief Performance Officer. and Susan Strange, the Academic Program Manager in the Office of the Commissioner. So welcome to both of you today.
Thank you. Karen is not on today. She actually has another meeting that she has to attend, so I'm going to present in her stead. So thank you for having me. Do I just take over the... Oh, there we go. Okay, so what I've provided for you, I don't think that's going to work.
Jessica, are you able to help Miss Susan?
Jessica, is there... Okay, let me see.
I am currently seeing your dashboard right now. Have you shared your screen?
There we go. I have not, but I think I've taken over somebody else's.
Oh,
The link that I put in the actual presentation takes you to KDE Strategic Plan webpage. Trying to get it to pull up.
Susan, would you like me to present it? I think I've got it.
I thought I had it and then... Okay. I can present and just share my screen because I need to be able to click around.
Okay.
So let me just get this pulled up. Okay, the link that's in the actual presentation will take you to the KDE Strategic Plan webpage. You can get there by clicking on the Commissioner of Education at the top, and then it's under Strategic Plan here. And this will give you the most updated information on our strategic plan, including the link to the dashboard. So our strategic dashboard is hosted on Tableau's public site. But I wanted to go ahead and walk you all through it today. And then at the end of this, we're going to ask for some feedback or how you might use this dashboard. So first, when you get to the dashboard, you're going to go to an overview page, and the overview page has a quick little snapshot of the last 5 years of each of our goals. So we have reimagining, assessment, and accountability. And so this is a timeline just kind of showing where we are. And we are currently advocating for the bill and waiting on it to get passed, as you all have heard today from both Dr. Stafford and Dr. Fletcher. Then revising regulations if needed, providing resources, training, and implementing that new system. So we've got a timeline on this goal. Another goal we have is to reduce chronic absenteeism. We're going to improve early literacy and early numeracy and expand the recruitment of qualified educators. And then these three, improve customer satisfaction, organizational process awareness, and build leadership capacity, are three of our operational goals. So the other 5 are what we consider customer stakeholder goals, and then these are operational and internal goals. If you click on the next tab about these goals, it just gives you a little bit more information on the goals and particularly where we're pulling the data from on each of those. Then we go into a breakdown of each of the individual goals. So this accountability is reimagining assessment and accountability. There's that timeline again, which is kind of our goal, just getting it to implementation. And then below that, you're going to see key performance indicators. And all of these pages are set up the same way. You have the goal at the top, and then you'll see key performance indicators underneath that particular goal. This one is about increasing the percentage of districts at each stage of local accountability development and vibrant learning experiences and portrait of a learner creation. So if you change these key performance indicators on this filter, it will change the graph on the bottom there. And then the explanations here, the definitions were created by our Office of Continuous Improvement and Support Division of Innovation. So it'll give you an idea of what we mean when we're talking about those different stages of development, whether that's vibrant learning development, portrait of a learner development, or local accountability. Okay. Moving on, our next one is chronic absenteeism. And what I want to point out on this one is we needed to be able to present the graphs differently. So it doesn't have a KPI filter like that last one did where you can switch the KPIs, and all of the graphs are just below here. And this is the exact same graph as before for vibrant learning experiences development. We're tracking it in both places to help us do the new assessment and accountability system goal, and then also chronic absenteeism, because we believe if you're presenting vibrant learning experiences in the classroom, then hopefully kids will be more apt to want to attend. Moving on, we also have what we're calling a data card here. So this is a way for us to present more information in a slightly more compact. This is for our awareness campaign. We had a chronic absenteeism awareness campaign that went around. We had billboards, the sides of buses, commercials, YouTube ads. And so this is just how many people or how many impressions that was able to reach. Okay, moving on, we have early literacy and early numeracy, and these are set up the same way. So you have your goal here, and then you'll have a data card, and then your KPIs down here. So your key performance indicators can be switched with this filter. And then this filter is your demographic group. So if it has any demographic breakdown, it will switch with that. And then the KPI will also switch. So for example, if I choose socioeconomic, economically disadvantaged. See how both of these charts switched because this one has demographic information. Now, if I'm on this one, it doesn't have demographic information. So to pull it back up, I'm going to have to click on total to see all the performance indicators. And early numeracy is the same. On educator recruitment, it's set up the same way. I just want to point out on this one that we've included, we're looking at enrollment, concentration, and completion rates of the teaching and learning pathway for this KPI. And so we've included the enrolled numbers, the concentrator numbers, and the completer numbers on each year, so you can see those. And then this will also change to the other KPIs that we're using as well. The last three, customer satisfaction, process management, leadership capacity, these are all those operational goals, but you can click on those and look for them as well. They will not have any groups, any demographic group breakdown. And then the last tab here is a resources tab. Right now, it's just links. It links you to web pages around the assessment and accountability goal and literacy. We link to that web page and multi-tiered system of supports web page. And this is still draft form, so we're still working on this and trying to update our resources as we can. Okay. So that is pretty much all that I have to show you, but I would like to ask if you all have any feedback. We would like to ask if this is something that you could see yourself using. Would you like to see a district spotlight? We've talked about doing some district spotlights on the dashboard. And then in that, what would you like to see? Would you like to see videos? Would you like to see, I'm not sure, some kind of report that they've pulled together? So how do you think you could use this?
This is Jana Beth, and I would say that the best way I see using it as someone working in the district is I would want to see where we stand in supporting the goals of the department. And so what I would like? I would like a mini dashboard for my district. So I could say, here's where we are on these goals, especially the goals that overlap. Obviously, the customer service and those goals are not, but how do we do compared to the district, to the state goals? And are we supporting them or are we hurting them? For example, we might have a higher percentage of students performing proficient or higher, but if that's declining, then that's hurting the overall state percent as well. So I think a resource for the districts to help them understand how they might look at this data would be very useful.
Yeah, thank you.
Hi, it's Sarah Williams. I think at the school level, I agree with Jana Beth. It's kind of nice to see where you're falling across the state. And I also liked that you included how you calculated those figures. So, for example, chronic absenteeism, it's really nice to know how you calculated it because I might be looking at it in a different way at my school. And so I think for consistency, that would be really helpful too. But that's how I would use it at the school level, likely.
Thank you.
This is Rosie Young, and I think I would say at teacher prep level to share it with our candidates about how districts are being monitored and implemented all these different strategies. It's important for us to make sure we're preparing our candidates to know what the strategies are and the plan is in place. So, just an awareness at that level when they go into their schools, they have some knowledge of what the expectations are in the districts and schools.
Thank you. Thought I saw a hand raised.
I believe Alan has his hand up.
Yes, thank you. That's all very informative. I guess what I would like to see are ways that we can capture so that people can start to see some correspondence with portraits of a learner, competencies and other things like that, as well as other ways about vibrant learning experiences and other kinds of things, even though they may not be, it could be quantifiable, how many or something like that. I don't know exactly what, but some way of having a dashboard. The reason that's important to me is if those local things don't get elevated up to at least be seen, then for many, they don't get counted. And they may not have to be counted in the state part, but to not be seen in these strategic dashboards, then I'll have principals go there and they'll say, well, that doesn't really matter. That's not what we're really being looked at for. But if you see evidence that, no, look at all these places that are doing this, whatever, and we can at least, it's not always an apples to apples comparison, but some kind of way that we can broaden and enrich this dashboard to include those elements. That's what I would be pushing for. And secondly, I know that it had the chronic absenteeism part. I don't know if that was a recent switch because of this change, but I also would love to see climate survey, school climate survey as well, because we end up having so many elements that are supposed to be indicators that are supposed to indicate something about quality, but they're such a narrow indicator that's not the main indicator. And so I just think that some of the school quality things like that would also be something that also got elevated. These things matter. And if I can see them on the dashboard, then it gives them some validity that they matter for schools, not just these other areas. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. I lost some of it in there. I think I might have a bad connection. But I just wanted to say thank you for the comments on that. I think that our idea around that district spotlight was to do exactly what you're talking about. Find some of these districts that have something exemplary going on around these specific goals. And then that way we can share that out. So people are using this as a way to see that. I also want to point out that on that resources page under the future of assessment and accountability, there are a lot. And actually, if you go to our KDE webpage and click on United We Learn, we've got a lot of information around the new assessment and accountability system. And we've started a Vibrant Learning Experiences webpage with some things that have happened across the Commonwealth in specific schools and with specific teachers. So we're working on creating those databases where we're spotlighting some of this work that's happening across the Commonwealth because we know good things are happening.
Susan, I'm going to jump in and just reiterate what Alan was saying, because there's a clear, from the EPP perspective, there's a clear crosswalk between Portrait of a Learner and the Kentucky Graduate Profile. So having access to some of the exemplary examples really will help us as we integrate those essential skills into our curriculum, regardless of degree program.
Yeah, thank you for that. I also want to point out our best practices website. KDUSA has a best practices website that people are able to upload information to, and then our Office of Continuous Improvement and Support vet those and make sure that information is accurate and good. And so that's just another place for people to go to get some information.
Susan, I think Superintendent Tuck also has his hand raised.
Yes.
Yeah, I'd just add that one conversation that we're having, kind of to Alan's point, as far as trying to elevate as far as everything and link it with our portrait, is we're working to kind of revamp our work ethics seal for our students, and then using that data to become part of our dashboard that we will report to our community and to our businesses and stuff too. So, and then actually adding those competencies and durable skills that are associated as far as with that. So that's one area that we've had conversation in.
And I just want to point out too that we've had discussions. We worked on getting that quantitative information, all of the actual data pieces pulled up, but then we wanted to talk about the storytelling behind our dashboard. How do we storytell? And I do want to point out and lift up Shelby County Schools. I've been in multiple, and I've heard multiple iterations of their local dashboard, and how they started out with quantitative data and a lot of numbers, and then their community came in and they were like, we don't want to see all this, we want to hear the stories. And so they have revamped their dashboard to be more storytelling and to talk more about what they're doing in their district. But same thing here, we are really trying to get some of those local accountability dashboards that are already out there to start sharing as people are building their own, to give some ideas. So really pay attention to that resources page, and especially United We Learn on the KDE webpage, because a lot of that's going to be updating as we move through this new assessment and accountability system as well.
We have another hand raised. Rosemary Young.
Yeah, Rosemary Young. How does this interface? Because I see the district and school report card information would also be an avenue that a lot of districts, how will they interface? And is it possible that some of the things that are being asked for could be added to that platform? I'm not sure how what's the interface between them?
I want to make sure I'm understanding you correctly. So we actually have a data analyst on our team, and she gathers the data for us. So she does get it from the school report card, if that's the view that we're looking at it from. A lot of our KPIs are coming from, for example, the starting, spreading, sustaining for Portrait of a Learner, vibrant learning experiences. That is collected via our regional innovation specialists, and they do that with their own face-to-face knowledge with that district to know where they stand. They've done it through surveys. So there's a bunch of different ways that they triangulate that data on that. So our data comes from all in all, our data comes from a bunch of different places, and we're just trying to make sure that we triangulate that in a way that feeds into that goal and lets us know, are we on track with that goal or not?
Yeah, I understand that. But what I'm interested in, when you were talking about the portrait of a learner and all those other factors, is there a possibility that could also be as part of this district and school report card on how they're doing those sorts of things? It's hard when you have multiple locations to try to find information. So I think the more succinct in one place would be more beneficial instead of going from one site to another. That's just, my preference.
I understand. I think it's just because it's around a bunch of different things. So the school report card is that individual district data. The districts will have their own local accountability system somewhere. And then this one is just the department's big plan that we can share around. So it's just, I think they are just going to have to be pocketed in a bunch of areas, but we can link in to that. So if you want to make the United We Learn webpage for KDE the place where you go, then things can be linked into that, including the school report card is linked into our webpage, things like that.
Yeah, that makes sense. You are looking at the components of the state plan. So that makes sense to have a dashboard for that.
Does anyone else have a question about our strategic dashboard?
Okay. Well, thank
John,
you all
thank
so
you.
much for having me. I really appreciate it. And if you find time and you're perusing the dashboard and you see anything or there are any issues on there, please you feel free to email me, susan.strange@education.ky.gov. Thank you all.
Great. Thank you, Susan.
Hi,
Hey,
Carrie.
yes.
I do want to say we might need to circle back around to our assessment and accountability piece. I do think there were a couple slides that we had to skip over to get to that dashboard slide. So I want to make sure that they have the ability to present that as well.
Okay. Dr. Stafford, is there anything else on these slides that you would like to talk about before we adjourn our meeting?
Thanks, Carrie. I'm going to turn it over to Shara.
Okay.
Thank you, Carrie. Yes, we have a few more items to discuss with you. So good morning, everyone. I wanted to talk to you about a few assessment updates this morning. Testing and testing preparations are well underway in our office. And so I have some updates on the activities that have taken place and those that are taking place at this time. First update is on access and alternate access. Testing has concluded for access. We had approximately 42,871 students that completed the access online, and approximately 763 were tested with the alternate access. At this time, the focus has shifted, and now they are preparing for the data validation activities that will take place. AKSA, the makeup window will close for window 1 on Friday. Looking ahead for window 2, that window, the second window, will open April the 14th and run through May 22nd. And any makeups or any new students that come in, you can do those makeup window 1 during that time as well. The TAR will close on May 22nd. Staff is continuing and busy prepping for the window 2 and ensuring that that operational test is ready to go. Our kindergarten screener, they are busy right now with material orders. That window is currently open and it will close on April the 3rd. KSA, or Kentucky Summit Assessment, all administration scripts and TAMs have been posted in the Kentucky portal, and they will have their first office hour for districts, and that will take place on March the 25th, providing an opportunity for coordinators to ask questions and receive additional guidance ahead of the testing window. So we are in a strong position as we move into the next phase of testing, and we'll continue to focus on readiness and support for the districts across all the programs. But with that, speaking of other programs, I'll turn it over to Kristen Roseberry. She's going to share some updates in the progress on the SAT for you. Kristen?
Thanks, Shara. Good morning, everyone. Just a brief update about where we stand with our SAT state administration that is currently happening. And so as we look back at our recap of where we were, in November of 2025, we and KDE and College Board offered 8 trainings at the educational cooperatives throughout the state. We had a total of 487 educators that attended. We've also had office hours in October, December, January, and February, covering various topics that were pertinent to that stage and where we were in the administration, allowing educators to join and ask questions. We've had over 325 educators participate. We actually have another office hour tomorrow to talk about where we are, some post-test activities and those things where we are in the administration now. We had an accommodations webinar in November hosted by College Board that had 480 in attendance. We also had our February DAC training Q&A sessions, and we had College Board staff that were with us at each of those. And we also had a recorded training that was released on scores and reporting for the SAT. So everything is open now. We are currently testing. We are into week 3 of our test window. And so the state data management system is open. Testing staff are in there, making sure everything is going along. They are actively using Test Day Toolkit because it's open as well, allowing students to process through their exams. We have several that have completed, but Test Day Toolkit is where they can print those access tickets to allow those students to use practice tests if needed and also access the test on test day. So everything is operating and going as planned. College Board also offers many free, engaging SAT practice resources to help students prepare. They have digital practice tests, question banks, questions of the day, and then also official SAT prep on the Khan Academy. College Board is also partnering with schoolhouse.world to launch official SAT tutoring, which is a peer-to-peer tutoring option that is also free to our students. And so we are still working with College Board again to host those office hours this week, tomorrow, and in April that will discuss those topics for the administration as we move through. We will also have a webinar that discusses scores and reporting for those students and educators as they begin to receive those reports. And so in short, we are ready for a successful SAT administration, and we are currently in the midst of a successful SAT administration. I'm happy to report that as of the conclusion of week 2 last week, just in week 2, so just last week, we had almost 18,000 tests submitted. And so after the first 2 weeks of the window, we are at about approximately 60% of our juniors have completed their SAT exam. And so we're excited about that as we continue to help and assist our schools and districts as they move through that test window. And so I think that's all I had.
Before you leave the SAT, can I just say from a district that tested last week, everybody says the platform is so easy to use from the student level. So we are really happy with that piece.
Thank you, Jana Beth. That is similar feedback to what we've received, and we are happy to hear that. Thank you.
Jana Beth, I will echo those sentiments. We tested last week, and our high school administration was very pleased with the way that went. So thank you all for rolling this out in such a smooth manner for our districts.
Thank you.
Does anyone have any questions about these topics before we move on?
No questions, but I just wanted to just a note, Dr. Ballinger and Jana Beth, that we have, as Kristen noted, we've heard positive things and comments around the transition from ACT to the College Board and the administration of the SAT for our college admissions exam. Had a few little obstacles that we had to get past to get here, but due to Kristen's leadership and how well she has managed the program in collaboration with College Board, it's gone really well. So we're happy to note that, and happy to be in the place we are now.
Thank you. And Kristen and Shara, I do apologize that we skipped over your portions of the presentation. Please accept that apology.
Yeah, no worries.
No worries. No problem. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Does anyone have any other questions or comments before we adjourn today's meeting? I will say that yes, someone.
I just wanted to thank all of our members for being here. We really appreciate your time and attention. Welcome to our new members. we look forward to many more meetings, and it's going to get very interesting as we've got lots of changes and possibilities. So we are so grateful for your attention, for your time that you spend with us.
Thank you, Dr. Stafford. Our next upcoming meeting is scheduled for July 21st. You should already have a calendar invite in your calendar for that. So hope that everyone is able to meet with us on that day. It's really important for us to have a quorum and also to be able to listen to your feedback as it is provided to the department as they move forward in their policy work. So thank you again for everyone joining us today. And with that, I will need a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn, Jana Beth Francis.
We have a first. Does someone second that motion?
I second the motion. Nicola Mason.
Thank you, Dr. Mason. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye or giving us a thumbs up.
Aye.
Thank you all. The motion carries and our meeting is adjourned. I hope everyone has a wonderful rest of your St. Patrick's Day.